If you feel like you're spending more money just to buy the same things, you're not alone. Inflation is a complex topic, but in this video, I'll break it down for you and give you the tools you need to stay financially secure. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to toss it a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one. Inflation is defined as the rate that prices for goods and services rise over time. There are several reasons why prices can go up over time, but it all boils down to two main types. The first is known as demand pull inflation. When people have more money, they can afford to spend more and buy more things. And when people can afford to spend, businesses raise prices because they know people can afford to pay those higher prices. This is the type of inflation we're seeing in the United States right now. A couple years ago, when the COVID pandemic hit, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates to zero, making it really cheap and easy for people to borrow money. And on top of that, the US government provided stimulus checks to people, putting even more cash in people's pockets. Because of all this cash that people suddenly had access to, people could spend more money, so prices went up pretty much across the entire economy. The other type of inflation is cost push inflation. Cost push inflation has less to do with how much money individuals can spend and more to do with how much businesses need to spend to produce goods and services. When production costs go up for businesses, they raise prices to stay profitable. But this type of inflation can be especially tough for consumers because unlike demand pull inflation, where prices grow because people have more money, with cost push inflation, prices grow even though people have the same amount of money, which makes things become unaffordable for more people faster. Now, there's a bunch of different metrics out there that people use to measure prices and inflation across the entire economy. The most common that people use is known as the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. This is a weighted average of the prices of all the goods and services that consumers need, like food, medical costs, transportation, etc. The percent change in the CPI from one time period to another is how you get the inflation rate for that time period. The other metric worth mentioning here is the Price Index for Personal Consumption Expenditures, or PCE. I bring this up because the Federal Reserve prefers using PCE over CPI when looking at price and inflation data to make policy decisions. They like using this over CPI for a few reasons. First, PCE uses a broader set of data that accounts for all US households, whereas CPI only accounts for urban households. PCE also includes all expenses that affect consumers, even if the consumer didn't pay for it directly, whereas CPI only accounts for out-of-pocket expenses. And on top of that, CPI tends to be more volatile than PCE since price swings from volatile categories like energy and technology affect PCE less. Now, inflation is interesting because it's not always a bad thing, even if it does mean that we're paying more for the stuff that we need. If prices were consistently going down over time or were stagnant, then people wouldn't spend their money because they could get the same goods for the same price or less if they wait. This would also disincentivize investment because people wouldn't expect the value of their assets to increase with inflation. But on the flip side, if prices grow too fast, then goods would become unaffordable for people very quickly, especially if wages don't keep up. For these reasons, the Fed tries to keep inflation at a low level, around 2%, to maintain price stability while also enabling economic growth. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what can you do to protect your finances from rising prices? Well, the truth is, there's no perfect strategy that'll protect you from all kinds of inflation. There are so many reasons why inflation goes up and down, and these different reasons come with different economic impacts. But generally speaking, there are a few things you can do to be better prepared for times of high inflation, so let's go over them now. First, you can consider adding inflation-resistant assets to your investment portfolio. Government bonds like I-bonds or TIPS that were specifically created for people to protect their money in times of high inflation could help protect you since their values and rates move up and down with inflation. Next, when inflation is high, you should take time to reassess your budget and emergency fund. Things will become more expensive and you don't want to be forced to dip into your investments to account for higher expenses. But at the same time, you also don't want to hold on to too much cash without investing it, since the longer you hold it, the less it can buy. Finally, and probably most importantly, don't panic. Inflation comes in waves and is part of the economic cycle. For long-term buy and hold investors, just because you're experiencing a short-term period of high inflation doesn't mean you should make drastic changes to your long-term investing strategy. So with that, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button and smash that subscribe button to see more videos like this one.